Picture this. You're in a room full of people. At first you're fine, you're talking, listening, laughing at the right moments. Someone later says, "You're actually pretty outgoing." Then, without warning, something shifts. Your energy drops, your words slow down. You start watching instead of participating. And suddenly someone else says, "Oh, you're definitely an introvert." Here's the thing. If you've lived in that contradiction your whole life, your brain might not be introverted at all. It might be wired differently. Stay with me, because what I'm about to explain will probably change how you've been describing yourself for years. Before we go any further, this needs to be said clearly. You're not confused. You're not inconsistent. You're not half social or socially awkward. And no, you're not failing at being an introvert either. What's actually happening is that the introvert-extrovert label has been doing a terrible job explaining how you function. Humans evolved in groups. For thousands of years, belonging wasn't optional. Your group meant food, safety, survival. But here's the part that gets overlooked. Not everyone survived by bonding the same way. Some people survived by being deeply embedded in the group. Others survived by being adaptable, moving between people, reading situations, knowing when to engage and when to pull back. That flexibility mattered. And today we call that pattern ambiversion. Ambiverts aren't undecided. They're responsive. Their nervous systems evolved to adjust, not commit permanently to one mode. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain. Social interaction triggers dopamine. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It's the same chemical released when you're about to open a gift or scroll social media, waiting for something interesting. Extroverts tend to get strong dopamine spikes from social stimulation. Introverts tend to get overwhelmed faster. Ambiverts sit right in the middle. They get a dopamine reward from interaction, but only up to a certain threshold. Think of it like a party. At first you're engaged. You talk easily. You enjoy the flow. Then suddenly the stimulation stops feeling rewarding. Not because you hate people, but because your dopamine system has saturated. Your brain enjoyed the reward, then signaled that it was time to stop. Brain imaging studies show this pattern clearly. Ambivert brains activate reward centers during social interaction, then show faster fatigue than extroverts but slower than introverts. In plain language, you're not antisocial. Your nervous system just knows when it's had enough. Here's where people get this wrong. They assume social fatigue means dislike, or avoidance, or anxiety. But what's actually happening is much quieter. Your nervous system is doing math. It's measuring noise, faces, voices, expectations. And at some point it says, enough. Not because the experience is bad, but because it's complete. Think about music. You can love a song and still turn it off once it's run its course. That doesn't mean you hate music. It means your system knows when to stop. Ambiverts experience social interaction the same way. They don't need constant stimulation to feel alive, and they don't need constant solitude to feel safe. They need rhythm. Engage, withdraw, process, return. When that rhythm is broken, exhaustion appears, and exhaustion gets misread as introversion. But it's not withdrawal from people, it's regulation of input. This is where mislabeling causes real damage. Most people don't say, I behave introverted sometimes. They say, I am an introvert. That's not behaviour, that's identity. And identity shapes self-esteem. Listen to how people talk. Extroverts say, we need to go out. We're bored. Introverts often say, I need to be alone. Ambiverts switch. Sometimes it's we, sometimes it's I. That pronoun shift isn't inconsistency. It's contextual identity. You don't define yourself by one state. Your sense of self adjusts to environment, energy, and meaning. Psychologically, that's not confusion. That's adaptability. Another reason ambiverts get misunderstood is empathy. Everyone has a limited emotional budget. Some people spend it broadly, others spend it deeply. Ambiverts tend to allocate empathy selectively. They can listen intensely, they can care deeply, but they don't do it constantly. Studies on emotional intelligence show that ambiverts often score high in empathy, but lower in emotional exhibition. You feel a lot. You just don't broadcast it all the time. To louder personalities, that can look like distance. It isn't. It's discernment. For some people, ambiversion has a story. Maybe you learned early to read rooms before speaking. Maybe you were rewarded for being adaptable. Maybe you were the mediator in your family or friend group. Or maybe you were overstimulated at some point and learned to pace your social energy. And sometimes, there's no story at all. You just don't enjoy extremes. Both are valid. This is one of the most important distinctions. Some people find meaning in constant interaction. Others find meaning in depth. Ambiverts usually want engagement with impact. They don't want to talk just to talk. They want conversations that matter. This is the difference between parasocial engagement and direct engagement. Parasocial engagement is watching, reacting, consuming. Direct engagement is participating, influencing, contributing. Ambiverts lean toward the second. They want reciprocity. If their presence doesn't change anything, the interaction feels empty. That's why small talk drains you. Not because you're introverted, but because it lacks meaning. This is also why ambiverts often feel strangely restless. Too much solitude and something feels missing. Too much socializing and something feels invaded. You've probably felt this. A weekend alone sounds perfect until it goes on too long. A packed social day feels exciting until your body quietly asks for silence. This back and forth isn't indecision. It's calibration. Ambiverts are constantly adjusting to stay aligned with themselves. That's why rigid advice never works. Just put yourself out there. Or just stay home and recharge. Neither fully fits, because ambiverts don't want extremes. They want balance with purpose. They want to feel involved without feeling consumed. And once you understand that, you stop forcing yourself into roles that were never designed for you. If you've ever related to introvert articles and extrovert ones, that's not contradiction. That's ambiversion. If you can be the life of the party and then suddenly want to go home, that's not moodiness, that's energy regulation. If you enjoy meeting new people but prefer familiar faces nearby, that's not insecurity. That's controlled novelty. If you work well alone and in groups, listen deeply and communicate clearly, observe quietly and step forward when needed, you're not indecisive. You're flexible. Most list-based ambivert videos stop here. But the psychology goes deeper. Research published in the Harvard Business Review found something fascinating. Ambiverts often outperform both introverts and extroverts in leadership roles. Why? Because they adjust. They speak when needed. They listen when needed. They don't dominate, they don't disappear. They manage people the same way they manage energy. Situationally. That's not weakness, that's control. There's another quiet truth here. Ambiverts often doubt themselves more than they should, because society rewards consistency over accuracy. People trust those who are predictable, even when they're wrong. Ambiverts are accurate, but situational. That can feel unstable from the inside. One day you're confident, another day you're reserved. But that doesn't mean your core is shifting. It means you're responding honestly to what the moment requires. And once you stop judging that flexibility, you start trusting it. You stop asking, why am I like this? And start realizing, this is how I stay balanced. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This part surprises people. Some of this may be genetic. Temperament research suggests that some nervous systems are born more flexible, not high-seeking, not low-seeking, adaptive. That means your sensitivity to stimulation, your comfort with both solitude and interaction, might not be something you learned wrong. It might just be how you're wired, And once you stop fighting that wiring, everything feels easier. Here's the quietly radical truth. You're not socially inconsistent. You're environmentally intelligent. You adjust instead of forcing yourself into one mode. In a world obsessed with constant output and visibility, that gets mislabeled. But it's one of your biggest strengths. So let's bring this home. If you've ever felt social and private, expressive and reflective, energized and drained, you're not confused. Your dopamine system seeks stimulation, but not excess. Your identity adapts instead of locking into one role. Your empathy is deep but selectively spent. And yes, this might even be partly genetic. So the next time you feel tempted to say, "I'm just an introvert," pause. Because you're not broken, you're not antisocial, you're not inconsistent, you're just an ambivert. And once you understand that, you stop fighting your energy and start working with it. If this resonated, you'll want to understand why ambiverts often overthink after social interactions and why that's not anxiety, but processing. Click one of the videos on screen to see how your mind works differently than most people realise. If you stayed this far, tell me which part felt the most like you in the comments, and if this helped, subscribe for more.